Almost 10 years ago, my family was in Israel on a summer vacation at the same time that my brother-in-law's family was traveling with a bar mitzvah tour. Their 10-day bus tour was packed with dozens and dozens of first-time families partaking in what was then, 10 years ago, Disneyland Israel. Their trip culminated with a B'nai Mitzvah ceremony for the many, many, many American Jewish kids atop Masada. So Blair and I and our kids traveled to Masada to join them. When we arrived at Masada, my brother-in-law introduced me to all of his newfound bus best friends as his sister's husband, who had recently become a rabbi. And that was meant to excuse any kind of strange behavior that was about to undoubtedly ensue as part of this bar mitzvah service. And sure enough, as the service began, and every adult promptly put down their prayer book and picked up their cell phone to start recording, I stood up and began putting on my talis and tefillin to daven on my own. I know exactly what you're thinking. I wish the rabbi was my brother-in-law too. And as I began to recite the familiar words of our liturgy in that ancient rocky palace ruin, I began to reflect on the meaning of that room atop Masada. I thought about the Jewish families who had gathered in that space together roughly 2,000 years ago to face the unimaginable. I considered the choice they made, fathers and mothers who decided it better to take the lives of their families and their own lives rather than to allow themselves to suffer the unthinkable horrors at the hands of the Romans. Pools of tears began to form in my eyes, and I began to sink past images around the world of Jews praying at that moment in community, just like this. I sank past previous generations of our people facing the unimaginable in our own land, in foreign lands. Some stories we know, some stories we don't. I saw the young face of my Grandma Faye in Auschwitz as she watched her mother and her younger siblings directed into the other line toward the gas chambers in the crematoria. I saw her watch them disappear without saying goodbye. I sank deeper and deeper and wondered how we can endure this pain for so long. How can we muster the strength to face this broken world again and again and again? Psalm 130 refers to that as the deepest place, not the lowest place, the deepest. Mima'amakim kraticha Adonai. From the depths I call out to you, God. In Hebrew, it's called ma'amakim from the Hebrew word omek, meaning depth. It was in ma'amakim that I saw Moses. His face was filled with shock. He was staring at his older sister Miriam, in many ways his protector, his guardian. Miriam was ill, stricken with leprosy, her skin scaly white. I watched as the speechless Moses opened his mouth and spoke the words, Elna refanala. Oh God, please, heal her. Heal her. Standing terrified, paralyzed, in the face of the unimaginable, Moses prayed. And then I saw the prophet Jonah. The book of Jonah that we read this afternoon tells us that Jonah tried to run away from his calling and hide aboard a ship. And then a storm raged and chaos broke out, but Jonah closed his eyes to it, and he slept soundly. The captain of the ship approached him and demanded, "How could you be sleeping? Get up and call upon your God." Several verses later, Jonah suggested that they toss him into the sea. And it's there down in the depths, deep within the belly of a large fish, that Jonah began to pray. Vayitpalel Yonah el Adonai Elohav mime'eh hadaga. Jonah prayed. There in the depths of Ma'amakim, everywhere I turned, I saw people praying. Moses, Jonah, so many of our ancestors, all offering prayer. This is how we encounter the unimaginable. We pray. Prayer is not only poetry believed. Prayer is also our practice to encounter the unimaginable. Prayer is the most difficult aspect of our tradition for Jews today. First, prayer challenges the way in which modern Jews associate our identity. Jewish identity today is one of strength and activism. We teach the tenets of activism. We've rejected the physically weak, politically submissive Jewish culture of pre-Shoah Europe. We've constructed a modern Judaism of peoplehood, of statehood, of strength. For those of us who associate a process of prostrating and beseeching with begging and weakness, prayer may feel unworthy. Second, prayer challenges the rational aspect of our modern sensibility. What's the value proposition of prayer? How do we measure the return on investment of prayer? Everything we construct in our lives today provides us precisely what we want, when we want, how we want, to avoid the sense of helplessness, searching, drowning, involved in prayer. Everything today in secular society caters to you because you are in control. The act of prayer acknowledges profound vulnerability. You can even sense it during our prayer services. Our clergy buoy you with constant page announcements, with English framing. We help you stay focused so nobody feels lost. We accommodate your anxiety and we protect you against vulnerability. Yet this is a day when we acknowledge that we all carry with us profound vulnerability. My analogy to prayer is swimming. Many enter this sanctuary during services, be it high holiday or Shabbat, and find the service foreign and intimidating. So we choose to remain in the shallow end. The clergy and the staff, we offer you floaties, and we try to make the shallow end as meaningful as possible for you. And that's unfortunate, because it's in the deep end where authentic swimming occurs. Real swimming involves the beauty and the freedom that can only happen on the razor's edge between the fun of exercise and the vulnerability of drowning. Roughly 16 years ago, Rabbi Sholoway stood exactly where I'm standing today and delivered a brilliant sermon about prayer in which he focused on the theological obstacles. Yet I think there's a far more fundamental challenge today, even more so than discovering God. His sermon assumed that Jews knew how to pray and were willing to pray. Today, I believe that many of us have lost those skills because we cannot tolerate vulnerability. Yet it's amidst intense, deep vulnerability that our tradition portrays for us moments of prayer. It's in Jacob's dangerous journey home, exhausted, schlepping family, in the darkness of night, in a moment of solitude, that he wrestled with the divine. It's after Samson was blinded and weakened that he prayed for just one more moment of power. In Jonah's fleeing, he must be swallowed by the depths in order to find faith and pray. All of our greatest Jewish role models have moments when they fall helpless and they turn to prayer. Over the last 2 years, since October 7th, wave after wave of the waters of the unimaginable have crashed down on us, and we have pulled together facing it in community. We've welcomed hostage families into this community. We've traveled to Israel and volunteered. We've heard stories from IDF soldiers returning from the front lines. We've sat with Bedouin leaders in their communal spaces. During this upcoming VBS mission to Israel in January, we'll spend 2 days up north that will include meetings with the leaders of the Druze community. For many in Israel and around the world, the trauma and the pain of October 7th and this terrible, terrible war points to an abiding sense of palpable vulnerability and a detail of those experiences that we've not yet discussed in this community. A detail that's part of every story of those who lost loved ones, or whose sons or daughters did not return from battle, or who suffered captivity in tunnel dungeons in Gaza. That consistent detail is prayer. The New York Times featured a story about the hostage Omer Shem Tov and his experience of 505 days in captivity after Hamas stole him and held him for ransom. In the article by Isabella Kirshner, Shem Tov explained, and I want to quote this for you, "You are looking for something to lean on, to hold on to. The first place I went to was God. I would feel a power enter me. Faith kept me going." Faith kept Omer Shem Tov going. The article also recounted the story of Eli Sharabi, who was held and starved for 491 days in the tunnels, only to emerge and learn that his wife and his 2 teenage daughters had been brutally murdered on October 7th. He recalled that while in captivity, he tried his best to recite Kiddush on Friday nights over the small allotment of water that he would receive. Omer Shem Tov and Eli Sharabi found power in the practice of prayer. It's been 728 days since October 7th, 2023. 728 days since more than 250 souls were abducted, stolen, and 48 still remain. Never once have I regretted singing Achenu Achiotenu Kol Beit Yisrael, the prayer for the release of those in captivity from this bima, even on weeks when it seemed like hope was lost. We've reminded ourselves, and we've reminded every visitor to this community that to us, here in this place, the hostages matter. We refuse to let them fall off the front page. Even if the world is bent on forgetting the names of Ariel Bibas and Kfir Bibas, Hirsch Goldberg Poland, and Eden Yerushalmi, on this bima, in this sanctuary, in this community, we will not allow that to happen. Out there, the world wants to move forward. But in here, we should want to go deeper. Mima'amakim kraticha Adonai. We call out to you, God, from the deepest place possible. If your reaction to these stories is, how could a person pray after October 7th to a God who allowed those atrocities? Well, then I encourage you to go back and read Rabbi Schulweiss's sermon from 16 years ago. Just as Rabbi Schulweiss would say, and I agree, I don't blame God for the atrocities perpetrated by Hamas and all of their Palestinian collaborators. But if your reaction to this call is that you wouldn't pray because you're not sure it's worthwhile, you're not sure of its purpose, you're not comfortable with prayer itself, then I think it's my responsibility right now in this moment to deflate your floaties and push you into the deep end of Ma'amakim. Because it's time that we all learn. To learn to swim in the deep pool of prayer, I recommend you take lessons. These holiday services are not intended to be lessons. We can all sense it. This is not the setting to learn. 2 years ago, I encouraged our community to begin our days with Mode'ani, an affirmation of gratitude each morning, and to end our days with the Shema, our people's creed. I recommended an accessible framing of our day through prayer at home, in private. In return, I received so many positive messages from those who tried it. Whether they helped craft your personal day, or whether it provided a predictable moment of our tradition for you and your kids together before bed, the word most often used in those messages was the word meaningful. Now it's time for all of us to move a little deeper. To learn to pray as a community, one must be willing to attend minyan. It's where we gain familiarity with the words in the absence of all of the beautiful orchestration. The choreography is most simple, and the community most palpable. Minyan offered daily in our chapel at 7:30 a.m. and 6 p.m. is the most simple classroom where the building blocks of prayer are learned. I have always been so proud of our robust minyan. Regular minyan attendance is the statistic that most easily reveals the spiritual health of any community. And I must confess to all of you today on Yom Kippur, I must confess, unfortunately, our minyan used to be stronger. I can't help but believe that Yosi Dresner's passing has diminished our minyan attendance. And I can't help believe that he's disappointed by it. Some of us used to come to minyan because of Yosi. We came to the pool to swim because we loved the lifeguard. Many of us have stopped coming to minyan services because the lifeguard is no longer seated at the pool. But that reflects a misunderstanding of Yosi and what he wanted to accomplish. We didn't come for Yosi. Yosi came for us. There's not a day when I stand in the chapel and pray when I don't feel his presence and I don't still believe that he shows up when I pray there. It's in moments of my personal prayer when I close my eyes and allow myself to fall into the depths of our shared eternity that I encounter so much, including our beloved Yosi. His memory might be preserved through the naming of our social hall, the Yosi Dresner Social Hall across the hall. His body might be buried in Simi Valley, but his essence lives on in the depths of the eternal pools of our tradition. It's in the still silence of Yizkor that I witness so many of us close our eyes and feel the warm embrace of a loved one from the depths of the unimaginable. It's during Yizkor I witness so many of us close our eyes and allow ourselves to fall into the ma'amakim deep within our hearts. This Yizkor, I'll wade into ma'amakim to encounter Moses, Jonah, my grandparents. And this time, of course, Yosi. So many times while preparing for the high holidays this year, I've missed him. I missed asking him whether all of the Torah and Haftorah assignments were covered, only to get a Yosi response. So now you want my job too? I missed informing him of a new idea to be implemented in these services, only to get a Yosi response, Rabbi. They'll either love it or they'll hate it. Mostly, I missed walking onto the bima this year and hearing his Shana Tova, which seemed to convey to me the depth and meaning of what a new year should sound like. I've watched so many people this year stand and recite Mourner's Kaddish in Yosi's memory. I have watched the prayer of Kaddish help rehabilitate us through the unimaginable. And if you have not yet taken a turn, I encourage you to do so before the 11 months of Kaddish expire. Mima'amakim kraticha Adonai, Adonai shima v'koli tziena oznecha kashavot lekol tachnunai. Psalm 130 understands that we cry out to God from the depths of ma'amakim. And we hope that God listens to our prayers, but even before that, we hope that we've learned the skills to feel comfortable praying. That is why I will be attending morning minyan this year on Tuesdays at 7:30. I'm going to stand in the back of the room, and I'll make myself available to help you learn the choreography, to help you learn how to rap tefillin, help you learn what we do, when we do, why we do. I'll create a classroom, a learning lab for this community. The first morning minyan learning lab will be on Tuesday, October 21st. If you want to learn the ABCs, or if you want to learn to lead, or if you want to relearn what you once knew, this is a perfect experience. I hope you join me. Like any other skill, like any other skill, we need to learn or learn again together. None of us would expect that taking a couple of piano lessons every year would allow us to close our eyes and improvise jazz with other musicians. For the piano, we start with scales. For the pool, we start with stroke mechanics. For minyan, we start with the routine, the words, the basic choreography. Then one day before you know it, the familiar words wash over you and bring you to a much deeper place, and you finally taste ma'amakim. It's gazing into the abyss of the unimaginable that has inspired our people to compose some of our most indelible liturgy. When our people needed to avert an unending terrible drought, a new voice stepped forward. The Talmud tells us that Rabbi Hatkvah innovated the words of Avinu Malkeinu, our parent, our sovereign. And the skies opened, rain poured forth, and the crops grew again. When our people faced an unending terrible diaspora, our people seized on to a long, wandering poem by a little-known Jewish poet named Naphtali Herz Imber. In 1903, so desperate were we for a plan to save world Jewry, the Sixth Zionist Congress voted to adopt the idea of creating a Jewish state in Uganda. Uganda. This is how desperate we were. In protest to that vote, the minority of that Congress that had just lost wanted to force us to look deep within ourselves and not forget that we already had a land that was waiting for us to bloom. In defeat, that small opposition stood and sang an edited adaptation of Imber's poem, and they called that song Hatkvah. By 1933, the 18th Zionist Congress officially adopted Hatkvah as the anthem of the Zionist movement. Our greatest rabbis could assemble and craft the greatest sermons in support of Israel. And it would never invoke within us the type of deep, stirring emotion as when we sing Hatkvah as a community. It's the most recent of a long list of creative liturgy that binds us together with generations past and future. Regularly singing Hatkvah in community was one of my decisions that Yosi was most proud of. When we stand each minyan and every Shabbat and sing Hatkvah together, we're not only declaring support for Israel, we're also proclaiming that we have been to the depths as a people, and we have witnessed our fragility as a people, and we understand the odds are stacked against us as a people, and we still choose hope. Hatkvah. Prayer is not the answer to vulnerability. Prayer allows us to face our vulnerability. As an American Jewish leader, I fear that we're entering a more tenuous time, a period of increased vulnerability for us all. Over the last 2 years, we have come together to pray for many reasons. We rushed to the synagogue to pray due to pain and fear in the wake of October 7th. We prayed to mourn the slaying of the beautiful 6 hostages. We prayed in a joyful celebration when we rededicated this glorious sanctuary. We prayed together with trepidation during the LA fires. As I gaze down our challenging road ahead toward our shared collective destiny, what will bring us together in prayer over the next several years? When we show up, do we want to show up as spectators, or do we want to show up as participants? Who amongst us will step forward and be the next creative artist that crafts the next great prayer for our people? The great American artist, Lin-Manuel Miranda, wrote the following lyrics in Hamilton. He wrote, "There are moments that the words don't reach. There is suffering too terrible to name. You hold your child as tight as you can, and you push away the unimaginable. The moments when you're in so deep, it feels easier to just swim down. The Hamiltons move uptown and learn to live with the unimaginable. I spend hours in the garden. I walk alone to the store, and it's quiet uptown, and I pray. That never used to happen before. I do not expect everybody here to begin attending prayer services daily. What I am asking everybody here to do is to commit to attending more often. Can we imagine attending minyan on Tuesday mornings? Can we imagine attending 10 more services this year? 10 more opportunities to practice prayer. 10 more opportunities to practice being a good neighbor. There are times of the year when family shows up to recite Kaddish for a loved one, and the entire family shows up, and it's a beautiful sight to see. Mourners, brothers, sisters, children, grandchildren, all standing together and supporting one another. And it's also a beautiful sight to see when an individual shows up to say Kaddish, and she or he finds the VBS family waiting for them. Because that's what we are at our core. We're all family. Whether it's true in a biological sense, a historical sense, a spiritual sense, everybody in this community is family. That day on Masada, as I laid there deep beneath the celestial bedrock of Ma'amakim, it was family that pulled me out. I felt the slightest pull on my hand. It was then that I opened my eyes and I took a breath of this world again, and I looked down and saw my toddler son. He had taken up the leftover slack hanging off my hand from my tefillin. He took that dangling leather slack of tefillin and he began to wrap it around his own tiny finger. And as I watched my extra tefillin wrapped around those fingers, I immediately felt a responsibility, and I immediately felt a vulnerability. At once, I felt my prayers had been answered, and I felt a need to pray anew. I felt the need to raise up my voice and pray for safety, to offer gratitude, to credit the Kadosh Baruch Hu. Most of all, I pray that my children one day submerge themselves into the deep, eternal purpose of meaning. Because it'll be there that they'll always be able to find me. It's there where we can always find each other. May we be sealed this year for maintaining the tools to encounter strength and encounter vulnerability. May we be sealed for a year of godliness, for a year of goodness, as we step forward together as a people into the unimaginable. Gemar Chatima Tova. Please rise and join me now in the singing of Hatkvah.